show. So hello everyone to our. What are we gonna cook? Are we gonna cook
chocolate?
Chocolate. So Freya is my guest today.
Wait, am I the first today?
No, I interviewed Diana first, but you're the second guest.
Second best.
Yeah.
Best guest.
I have like few questions about like your practice, and I'm really curious about like how people create. And I know that you make performances. Maybe I ask you like first like this question. I didn't ask her, but like, what's your title?
I guess I've embraced a bit from the Fluxus school of thinking. The intermedia title is of interest to me, and I think I ended up going that direction.
Like diagram, right? Like,
yeah, there is the the Higgins diagram for intermedia, but for me, in a way, I guess coming from practices that have their sort of established either silos, but they're built around disciplines, and having gone through classical training, which has a certain kind of rigor and militaristic repetition and drilling, that I think somehow it felt more interesting to me to intermedia rather than between interdisciplines. It's interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and there's lots of choices to think there. And yeah, that one has felt right for me in terms of thinking about the relationship between selected media, whether that's the body or image making tools, which I
yeah, image making. I'm going to come back to this. But like intermedia, like, are you like intermedia artist or are you intermedia?
Yes, I have. I think it says that on the website. Intermedia artist, also Great. Assistant professor. I guess that's a title now. No, but really, when it comes to my work, I've used that, and yeah.
Okay.
When my work is held the word dance in it, sometimes it's received for what it isn't as a dance work, which I haven't felt is helpful for the conversations that are like about like the positioning of what I'm doing with my work. And then when I've been at contexts, some people outside the art realm have said do not have brand identity issues, so maybe intermedia, maybe it makes people think differently, even interdisciplinary. It's challenging for people to position, frame, or have a sense of understanding what you're doing.
I guess it really depends on context, who you're talking to.
Yes, yeah.
So, well, I asked this question first, but my main question is like, how is your process? Like, how does it, like, let's say like you're creating a performance. How does it start and how does it end? I can ask for more like a specific question if you want, but if you can just start, please.
Yeah, I'd say most larger projects that I've built and taken a long period of time to develop and build the way of thinking about it has been I'd start with a way of relating to typically a technology, so I was wanting to do things with live video camera, so I started working with the one I had available, which was my built-in web camera, and I've often built projects through contexts like this, a lab, a workshop, residencies, so that you can phase the project through different kinds of iterations of co-learning or shared learning experiences, sort of scaffolded in between time alone, because that's also been a lot of the work that I do. So then working with the web camera, then I'm like, okay, well, actually I'm doing a duet with the laptop, so the laptop's on stage, so then it becomes, what's the web camera about? Then I start researching YouTube and the internet and looking at how people are using web cameras in their homes. So sometimes it starts with like a way of setting up a way of later projects were about working with not having a fixed white screen, so I played with scrims and transparencies, which then had me thinking about perception. I used 3D glasses, like a lesser used technique called chroma depth. Thinking about ways to sort of fracture the solidity of the projections, but also in that case I was doing like ways to fracture the way of seeing my body as well through black light and black light paint and a few visual kind of tricks.
So you seem to have like this kind of curiosity in like specific technology.
Yeah, or specific technology or way of relating as a point to go, how does this then inform how I move or how I perform, and what's the context of being in front of, say, this camera in this configuration? How does it change to have it be a web camera that's attached to a computer on the stage versus a less perceptible hidden camera? You know, so so it's kind of setting up a stage condition and or a way of relating to technology to then further and spark my research trajectory.
For the creation.
Yeah,
that's I'm really curious, like how you spend like studio time.
Oh yeah, on the more practical side, in a way, opening up a lot of tabs in my browser, you know, and then using one tab to consolidate, and then all of a sudden the one tab has 360 tabs. In terms of research areas and things I hope to go back to. So kind of trying to hold that tangential curiosity of both garnering materials and sources in terms of, because I engage a lot with content from the web in terms of it has been YouTube or other video platforms. There's some searching that happens in that way. And then it's just technical and learning as well too. And then long periods of time between doing anything physical. Yeah, so I don't necessarily have like, I don't start with movement or like a dailiness of a physical practice.
Interesting. But you have to somehow stage it. Is it like, how does it happen?
Yeah. I think maybe it happens when I get something to the point that I go, oh, okay, I'm going to go in front of the camera and now I have a purposeful way of engaging, relating, or exploring that doesn't feel like what I've done many times before.
Do you write down ideas, or you construct it in your head? I guess a fair bit in my head, but I do write down ideas, and I've always kind of had like, you know, not an extensive book, but I need to externalize a little bit. So sometimes the externalizing is in research areas and tabs, but it's better consolidated when I can put it down onto paper in terms of like sometimes it's actionable things that I could pursue idea-wise. And then earlier works I would concurrent to making a piece, I'd be doing drawing and paintings in a similar way of thinking, but that were never like integrated or part of the work. But that kind of dropped away fairly. Yeah, it was process. Yeah, that was kind of in my earlier works, and that's dropped away. And now that I'm teaching within a visual arts department, I haven't seen it come back to. Okay. I'm kind of still in the digital, like working with physical media as a way of externalizing or bringing ideas to the fore. It hasn't come yet, but it might again. We'll see how things kind of cycle in your creative processes over a lifetime, you know? Yeah, I mean, actually, that's something that I'm super interested in, like how people leave traces or artifacts from the process. And you said about painting, but is there something that you do in your current practice, something that can be shown later, or in other words, like how does this performance live? I guess in ways both working solo in that aspect of, you know, what's sometimes a contested term in terms of ephemerality around performance, or liveness, capturing liveness. Because I work with cameras, I've been able to
document, and not just document, but make work that's intentionally in relationship to the camera, and then disseminate or share those separate from the performances. So from every work, you know, like within a work, it's kind of like a body of work. There's like, say I have one video piece called Disembodied Beings, which I was intentionally made to perform live with, but it distributes and exists as a video work on its own that is in galleries or cinemas.
Because you have like different viewpoints.
Yeah.
That you capture during the performance.
No, it actually, the document that circulates doesn't have me performing at all. It doesn't have my body in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but so it stands alone as a video work, which then is augmented and then reframed or experienced differently when I'm performing it live and I speak the text instead of the text being heard through speakers attached to a video. Yeah, if that makes sense. So it stages differently. Or in like the end section of the more recent piece, Motion After Effect. The touring coming up this spring has is alive, made for being in real time experienced. These kind of painting trails, myself and somebody in a green screen suit that's played through the Unity game software. But during the pandemic, I did like a recorded version of it that I can screen as just a single channel video. So those are sort of their documents, but more their works on their own, you know, that have different iterations. They have like a live iteration that is sort of where they were initially formed and intended. But then they still have some of the same concerns and conversation and relevant to being screened on their own.
Yeah, I was like curious, like is the research process for making a performance and making an installation, are they like overlap or is it different? How does it branch out?
I think that the direction is always towards a live performance, but sometimes it's been like I've made a video work using this blacklight paint that's clear under regular lights but phosphorescent under black lights, so I paint on the surface of my body. But to integrate that into a performance, unless it's the first scene, was quite a trick to figure out like what kind of paints I could do that would work on the scale of a stage and what kind of web camera would capture it well enough to then be projected onto, in this case, it was black materials. So it existed as a video work in my research process first before I then go, oh, how can I figure out some live component to this? So sometimes it's almost just through the rehearsal process and the generating and the research process, I end up with video works.
Wow.
That then, or I think I had one where I was doing like two security camera views, one more a web camera where you're aware of the camera and performing, giving to, not knowing who's there, but in that sense of awareness, and then the other is more a security camera view. And I performed them separately, and I rehearsed and related to that way of engaging with the camera. And then through editing, I was like, actually, no, maybe they're not separate works. And I brought them together on a screen. And then it took me a while with Quartz Composer, an older piece of software, to figure out, how could I can't obviously perform both live by myself. And it was meaningful to have, there was also kind of a gendered conversation between the ways of relating to the camera and being observed, that then I ended up figuring out how to do one live and then one's the pre-recorded version.
Wow.
Yeah. But I made it just, I thought I was doing single channel videos that then became together, that then became one live and recorded, that then I brought onto Chat Roulette later, also just through another research line to see how a work done about performing for a camera, how it exists or responded to in the space like Chat Roulette with random virtual connections. Do you remember Chat Roulette? It was 2010. It was like a platform where you didn't have to make a user account, And when you joined, it said your audio or video might be recorded because there was like no controls on this space because there was no user accounts. And you would just be like a game of roulette connected to any random viewer with video and text. So it was different kinds of people performing or engaging on that space to see what would happen. So I like so iteration is in a way interesting to me to kind of work through ideas for single screen, then work through ideas through the live space, and then bring some ideas that are about the digital and the live experience back to the web to have a different kind of live experience or a different way of engaging in time and space.
Wow.
Screens. But I mean, sometimes it's a little difficult to articulate the center of where the work of the project is, and or I try to keep space so I can discover where work is going in a way. The container of a larger one performance has been the sort of solid ground,
right.
But lots of meandering through different iterations towards that. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I like this flexibility, and also like I guess you have this good, how do you say, like you set up your environment in a way that this works, right? Because if I'm just talking about this funding, for example, but if you have the end goal that you have to perform in this setting, then you have to do it that way. I mean, it's always a negotiation, but
yeah, it's kind of maybe been interesting being based in where I've largely had my foundation for my work, which is Winnipeg, Manitoba, which has had like affordable spaces for artists. So I had a live workspace, which with working with technology, you sort of need that ability to run a lot of cables and drill cameras into your ceiling and paint your floor green and the kinds of things that most performance rehearsal spaces have. And then the other piece being, you don't have very many sort of producers or venues saying, yeah, let's take on your show. So there was some element of giving space to then later determine where's the best place to present, your work. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like ideal situation.
Gift and a challenge. There's no agents or producers, right? Like, or minimal on that sort of like getting your work.
Yeah. Because in my case, for example, like last year I had residency for 2 months and performed something at the end. So, the collaboration started more like a research project, so probably similar to how your process works. But then as soon as like we have to like make it into a performance, dynamics and everything changed. Yeah. Which is a lot of learning for me. Yeah. But I wish that we had more like a, let's say, fluid space because we also work with installations and so on. Right. So if this was possible, or like to have some, well, in the end we did this way that we opened the space to the public first. It's actually opposite of how people would do. So we let people in and then we perform. Yeah. Which is actually quite risky because some people change, like settings of the buttons or take the costume that we have. But it's all like part of our process, which is quite fun. So we did our best to kind of intervene in this structure, but
allow for some disruption.
Please come to disrupt us.
Disrupt this program, please. Yeah. Nice.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's really inspiring.
Yeah. Let's see. Every work and process is sometimes a little different, And I've had the gift of doing lots of collaborations and working on other people's work as well too, which is always a different venture, and it's exciting to see how other people formulate and when they make critical decisions in a work.
Right.
Yeah. But,
interesting. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for engaging with me.
Thank you for watching. I'll stop it.